My name is Chris Harwood. I'm president of the New York chapter of SVU, the Czechoslovak Society of Arts and Sciences, and I'm very happy to welcome you to the Bohemian National Hall for our program this evening. Tonight we're going to have what's kind of an encore performance with Anna Rathkopf, who is an alumna of our 6-minute challenge. Maybe some of you are here when she presented part of this story the first time, but we all sort of knew that there was more of the story to tell. And so we're very glad that she's come back with her husband Jordan to present more of the story and the book that emerged from this amazing story. I'm not going to say much else to introduce them because they're going to introduce themselves. We're also very happy to welcome their guest, Dr. Magdalena Lombardi Plasilová, a surgical oncologist who's going to join them in a conversation about some of the topics this evening. So without any more ado, please welcome Anna and Jordan.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, and thank you so much for having us, and thank you, Czechoslovak Society for Sciences and Arts, for organizing. Thank you, Zuzana. My name is Anna. I'm originally from Prague. I've been living here for 17 years, and I would like to talk about our book. HER2 is a strain of cancer that I was diagnosed with.
And so what we're going to be sharing with you today is some excerpts from the book. Part of what made us want to work on this project originally was when Anna was diagnosed. We just felt the need as artists and photographers to capture what we were going through. And we then started thinking maybe it could be a tool to help others with early detection. And now, 7 years later, it's kind of changed a little bit back into what we originally needed it for, was our own healing process. Because in the years since our diagnosis, we've kind of learned and experienced a lot of the aftermath of what cancer can bring beyond those first year or two, but also the hope and the love that it can bring. And so we want to share with you some of this project, and the project was created with basically half of the images and the writing from Anna and her perspective as the person that was diagnosed, and then the other half from my perspective as a caregiver and a partner.
So, as Jordan said, half of it is him, half of it is me. This is a poem that's very important to me. As for the Jordan's half, he found it in my pocket when I was trying to memorize it after I lost my short-term memory due to my chemotherapy. So I will read you this poem. It's very important. Somebody gave me this body. What do I do with it now? It's a very remarkable body, and nobody's body but mine. I'm alive and I breathe. I'm strong and tall. Won't somebody tell me who to thank for it all? I'm the gardener and the flower too, and in this prison of a world, I'm not alone. When I move, when I breathe, I leave my mark on the everlasting window pane that keeps out the dark. It's the mark of myself, and that mark will remain on the cold transparency of that window pane.
We've broken this talk into sections. The book itself only has 2 sections, and the first section is diagnosis and treatment, and then the second section, about 3/4 of the way in, is called survivorship.
So this is a picture that I took about 3 days after I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I have this memory of urgency inside of me to create memories, because I was so scared. So I remember jumping into the snow and doing snow angels. I found my lump when I was 37, on my 37th birthday. It was in December. I had no family history. I was healthy, I was young. I had a young son. He was 2.5 years old. I went to my OBGYN 3 months before I found the lump, and I asked him for a mammogram. And he actually told me, you don't have to worry, you're too young. And that was it. Then 3 months later, when I found the lump, I called him, and he told me we should wait. But I didn't want to wait. So I went to get a second opinion, and that's when they actually told me that there is something called dense breast tissue that we will learn about later. And then mammogram for me would be basically useless anyway, because I was one of the 40% women who have dense breast tissue.
So this is the page in our book for diagnosis and treatment, and I'll just read it because I think this, for us, kind of represents some of what we felt very early on. You kind of have your normal life with your kids and your snow angels, and then all of a sudden you have to become a medical expert. You have maybe 20 minutes to speak with a doctor to find out what your prognosis is, and it's really disorienting. So we wanted to open the book just kind of with that kind of language that you're thrown into all of a sudden. And so this is kind of when I Googled the word diagnosis and I Googled the word treatment, this is the first thing that popped up. Diagnosis, the process of determining by examination the nature and circumstances of a diseased condition. An answer or a solution to a problematic situation. Treatment, action or behavior towards a person, animal, etc. Management and the application of medicines, surgery. Subjection to some agent or action.
You know, and then when I was diagnosed, everything just changed overnight. I came from a person who wanted to grow family, wanted to have another child. I very early on learned I would not be able to because of my treatment. And it was just a huge shock. I remember as a bilingual person, I had to tell myself, well, everybody was talking about cancer in English. And then at home, I told myself, mám rakovinu. And then when I told those words, that's in Czech. And I remember how it sunk in. Then I really realized I had cancer. I felt scared and lost, so I used the camera to create myself, to really give myself some empowerment. So I took a lot of self-portraits. This is one of them, and we have many more at home.
I think something that I didn't mention earlier on, but part of the process of working on this project is that we learned that there were a lot of things we were not talking about with each other. We refer to it as the burden of concealment, and this idea of there's things you don't want to tell someone you love because you're worried it might hurt them or how it may affect them, or maybe you're even worried about just protecting yourself. And those things kind of just piled onto us. And so this is one of literally hundreds of self-portraits Anna was taking that I had no idea existed really until a few years ago. And when I asked her why she was doing it, she said she didn't know who she was anymore.
So before cancer, I thought that there is just one type of breast cancer, and that's it. As Jordan mentioned, we just had to start learning very fast. So I realized that there are many more kinds of cancer and stages, and all of it impacts how I'm going to be treated.
And you know, for this picture for me represents that divide that we were both feeling, the inner world and the outer world. So inside this, I remember this photo really, really vibrantly because it was a horrible moment for me. We just didn't know where she was at with her diagnosis. You know, you have to wait very many weeks for testing to find out if it's spread, things like that. And we were so wrapped up in our inner world, and then I just remember looking outside the hospital window, and New York just seemed so indifferent. It was just like everything outside was going on without us, and everything inside for us felt like had come to a complete stop. And I'd say that throughout these many years, even up until this point, that feeling stays with me. Just stay with you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for both of us, that feeling stays, this feeling of you have your inner experience as a family, as a unit, and then there's the outside world that sometimes it feels like doesn't really care.
But it's interesting because then you start tapping into other people and you realize that everybody has that.
And so even in this kind of situation, like, you know, we're in the hospital rooms, and, you know, the photo I took is to the right. So, you know, it was just this feeling again of like, now we're together, but we're not. We're alone together in some ways, you know. And part of that is because of the experience of being ill. You know, it was really so focused on Ani, but I just remember when they closed that curtain, just this feeling of, really? like, this is my partner. I can't watch whatever is happening right now. It just made me feel so weird that I wasn't involved anymore in what she was going to be dealing with.
And for me, I remember actually this moment pretty well. And I remember I was just goofing with the camera in front of the mirror. And then probably like 2 years later, I actually looked again at the picture. And that's when I really saw Jordan. And I realized that he was there. I knew he was there with me the whole time. But I realized the impact it actually had on him. That while I was goofing and like kind of trying to annoy him with my camera, he was actually in his inner world, bored and scared. And that's the picture that I really saw my partner.
And, you know, while I'm looking at these kind of really foreign looking, weird, almost abstract visuals of Ani getting treated,
I see the toys of our son everywhere in our living room. And
it was kind of interesting even looking at the photos putting together the project, because what I realized is most of my photos were of Anna. So it's kind of like the caregiver a little bit too, like just that hyper focus on how you can help your loved one. And I realized I didn't focus on myself at all, and a little bit of my son, but Ani was just picking up all the details, all the things in the cracks that I just wasn't seeing. This section, we're going to just talk a little bit more about the role of caregiver, because since this experience, Ani too has become a caregiver for people in our lives, and so I know that's changed her feelings on caregiving, but I know for me, at 37, I had no idea what a caregiver was. I was very fortunate. I never had to know what caregiving was, but it was just a real shock to the system, and I don't know that I have had at that time any sense of what to do. My only advice now is try your best to be with your partner and for your partner. Like, I remember the level of shock Ani was in. It was very hard for her to absorb information from doctors. So part of my role as a caregiver, I felt, was to help her take notes, ask questions, just really do the best I could. And then with our son, just making sure he had a healthy home and felt like things were normal. Part of why this was so important to me was my mom was diagnosed when I was 11, and my family did not really talk about that. And I didn't realize until Anna got sick how much that actually had shaped a lot of my life. So that was part of why I think caregiving is something I like to talk about, because I think it is something that doesn't always get the kind of attention it really needs.
And this is actually his mom's wig that she brought from when she was in treatment. I never wore it. It was very 1990. But that was the moment.
The sad part is I actually really like it.
I know you did.
I actually still think I would wear it. Do you guys think I could pull that off? All right. I might bring that out, because I felt
Next
good.
time.
I felt good with that. And just returning to this, like, so you're trying to create this level of fun and whatever in your life when you're terrified, but you then have to go back to the hospital. And so again, just this feeling of alienation, I just constantly felt like the third wheel. And I was bored, so I would take a lot of photos.
And then he was, so my diagnosis was actually announced to me over the phone, where a doctor or technician actually asked me if I have 5 minutes, and I said yes. And she told me, well, I'm sorry, but you have cancer. And I remember I was at work, and I was standing next to the window thinking, and what should I do now? I'm dying. And since then, I didn't want to actually pick up the phone when I saw the ending of the hospital. So Jordan was doing all the phone calls. Like, he would put the doctors on a speaker, but he was the person who was picking up the phone. And he was also the person who did all the research.
Yeah, that wasn't the most... I mean, you can kind of see the writing. Okay, now it's not funny, but it's like, it's so me. Like, what are fatal why? It's just trying to understand as quickly as possible what is going on and what we're going to do about it.
But it was very helpful to have somebody with you all the time who would be taking notes and paying attention.
And this is just an example of the kind of conversations that opened up later. So, you know, Anna showed me this photo, and she's like, wow, I love this photo. I was so grateful you were driving me, and you were so great for me. And that's when I told her, Anna, I used to go to that car every day to cry hysterically because I had no idea what to do with my feelings, and I didn't want anybody to see that. And so that's, you know, part of the experience, I think, as a caregiver is, you know, a lot of times people bottle in these feelings. And then specifically as a male caregiver, truthfully, I had a lot of trouble finding support. I even went to Ani's hospital. I won't name them, but they're a good one. And 7 years ago, I said, hey, do you have a support group for me? And they said, no, maybe you should start one. So, you know, I was kind of on my own. As a male caregiver, I felt I was on my own. I just didn't know who to.
I really desperately tried to find him some cancer husband, but it was really hard, even on Facebook, and you can find a lot of stuff on Facebook.
And to that end, I just actually want to give a quick shout out to 3 males in this room that during this time actually were there for me. One is there, Josh, one is there, Skylar, and Rod over there in the corner. So, you know, it really... So thank you.
And then we have Jesse, our 2.5-year-old who celebrated 3rd birthday during my chemotherapy. For me, it was, on one side, it was absolutely terrifying because I was scared that if I die, he won't remember me. So that was basically the first thought that I had. That's why maybe the urgency of creating memories and taking photos was so important to me. But then he was also a beacon of hope because 2.5-year-old, 3-year-old doesn't care that much. He really wants to play with his cars, and you better show up. And he didn't care, and that was so sweet because he just needed me. He just needed both of us to be there for him. And so we really focused on him.
And I just saw myself in Jesse. I really did see myself in him. I saw my son now with a mother with cancer, and I started tapping into all that stuff I had never faced. And it was intense. But like Ani said, it was what got us through. Just knowing how much he needed us helped us find the strength, I think, to when we didn't know if we could find the strength, we just had to because he really needed us. And I don't know, still to this day, it's like on a bad day, I remember, you know, our little guy.
So I would just read you what I wrote to this picture. I'm trying to transfer the love I feel from my body to yours. I want you to feel it. Remember that I was here. To know that I will always be here with you, even if I'm not. They say our muscles have memories. I wanted your muscles to remember. To know that I was here and I love you. I will do everything I can to stay here to be with you. You need me.
And now the fun part. Balancing work, treatment, and the everyday. And this is a big reason why we share this work and share this project, is as much as we want to provide emotional support for people and help build community, we also want to point to some of the things that we experienced that made the experience really challenging. And one of those things was trying to navigate treatment while working.
So for me, as a person who grew up in Czech, that was kind of a real wake up to be in America and being sick. You know, in Czech, we have a lot of things like medical leave, health insurance, and all of it is very affordable. So it was really hard. I did my best to juggle it, but when I realized that I actually will have to go to work while on chemotherapy, and then I shared it with my friends and family in Czech Republic, people were not believing me. Yeah, that was really hard to actually balance that.
And for myself as so Anna had at that time, she was part-time photography, but a full-time job so that we would have commercial insurance for our son. And we didn't want to talk about this 7 years ago, but why not now? Her employers were not kind to her, and they were not supportive to her, and they essentially intimidated her into taking unpaid leave, which meant we also then had to pay for insurance out of our pocket for many months, which was quite a financial swing. And then she eventually went back to that job, and they started harassing her again because they said she didn't seem to have enough focus after 4 months of chemotherapy and radiation. And so, again, why we share this project isn't to point fingers or that, but we were trying to create understanding that this is what's going on behind the scenes. And it's a lot, and throwing these extra barriers on top of people who are already struggling so much is not helping. And we really need some solutions to this problem for the community, because this is not going away, and it's not just enough to save a person's life, they have to want to live.
Yeah. There's almost nothing I can say. This was taken right after I woke up from my lumpectomy. And the first thing I remembered was I looked at myself and I saw the signature, the initials. And I didn't know that was common at the hospital, so that the surgeon would just write an initial on your body. So I felt really weird waking up and having somebody else's signature on my chest. I might have felt better if they told me before.
Yeah, it was, certain elements of the hospital experience can be very dehumanizing. And despite all of these challenges, I know we've talked a lot about that so far, but I want to reiterate that ultimately what we were feeling most of the time was this incredible love and this incredible bond and these deepening of connections with each other, because my mom used to tell me after she was diagnosed that life is like a triangle, and when something goes wrong, the most important thing goes to the top. And when this happened with Anna, I knew right away what our top, or what my top was, and that was my family. And so that feeling actually was really beautiful. It was something I hadn't tapped into to that degree before this happened, and really tapping into that kind of pure love was really important. And so a lot of our project was then about just trying to want to capture those ups and downs, the everyday joys, some of the challenges, but really to remember the joys, because ultimately that really is why you push so hard to get through this.
And then Jesse, he was there with us all the time, and he was just keeping us in check. Every time you felt really down, he was there to pick you up. He didn't even know that.
We almost didn't put this in the book.
He hates the picture.
I have to say, we were doing a book sale the other day. This person picked up the book, and I guess they opened to this page right away, and they were like, "Oh." I was like, "What's wrong?" And they're like, "Nothing. I love this book, but now I can't teach it to my class." Because I guess there's really stringent nudity issues that they were worried about. So now I kind of think maybe we shouldn't have used it,
but now
but we're stuck with it. Maybe the second edition.
And now we put it on this big screen so that everybody can really see it.
I also just want to point out that I hadn't seen most of these images until we started putting this book together. It's literally lived in a folder, tucked away in a hard drive no one knew about. That said like 2018 to 2020.
Yeah, that was mine folder. And Jordan looked at some of the photos and he goes, "Oh, I think your lens was broken. It's completely not focused." And I told him, this is actually how I saw the world around me. It was blurry and unfocused, and I'm so happy I was able to capture it. But that lens is broken now.
I think it was broken then, but it just surprised me that she couldn't even tell in some ways what was in focus and not.
I did appreciate Jordan over the whole time. he was there. He was there for me. He was there for Jesse. But it was also really hard for me to actually watch him being healthy and him having all the fun that I wanted to have. So I admit I did feel some kind of resentment. It's not easy to say because he was there for me and he loved me, but I think it would be dishonest to say that. I didn't feel it.
And again, part of why we want to share this work, there's a lot of things in the work that isn't comfortable for us to talk about and share. And that's why I think it's important, because I don't think what we're experiencing is actually that unique, but it's very often unsaid. And learning about Anna's resentment towards me actually made it easier for me to admit to her, finally, that I felt some resentment towards you. Because of how much my life changed with everything, and I didn't feel like you were always being very considerate of that. And so it was a difficult conversation, but I think a very important conversation that comes a lot in caregiving and partnership. And then just, we pepper in hospital shots, not because we like them, but because it's part of the routine. It's, I think that part of what people don't always realize is how much, even when you're maybe cancer-free or in remission, or even if you're not, how much you still have to go to doctors and how much you still have to be monitored and how much of that is actually just built into your life from now on.
And this was actually from a family, my idea of a perfect family photo shoot. Where I was kind of fed up at that time seeing all the social media with the perfect mothers and everybody's so clean and neat. We still have the stains of the lipstick on our wall. And I think that this was our first and last try for it, because we realized that if we actually give Jesse a free rein, it does not end well.
And then just the care circle, a lot of it's about me, obviously, because I was with her all the time, but...
And because you're very important.
But we could not have done what we did without the people around us that were part of our care circle. And it came in all different kinds of shapes and forms. But very specifically, and when we talk about some of the issues that families face when navigating illness, especially cancer under 50, which has been a big topic lately, but I feel like we need to be talking about caregiving for children. And if you're ill, how exactly do you take care of kids when you're trying to do work and manage your treatment? And so we were very lucky. We had a family that could come help us.
Yeah, my mom came from Prague, and she stayed with us. She was basically doing all the cleaning. Jordan's mom was doing all the cooking. And together everybody was taking care of Jesse. Because there were times when we just did not feel like he can be with us because the energy that we had was not good for a 3-year-old.
And it was not easy for them. For Anna's mother, it was really hard for her to watch her daughter sick like that. My dad was all right. He handled it well. But what's funny is through this project, last year, I was speaking to my dad, and for the first time, he referred to himself as a caregiver. In all these years, we've been kind of going through stuff, and I don't want to take too much credit, but I think part of it is because I've been talking to him so much about caregiving, and I think he saw how much it took out of him too a little bit, and he started recognizing that more.
And this is actually. That's Jordan's mom on the stoops of their house. That's when I started a different phase of my treatment, and I actually started to have suicide thoughts. And it was, I never had that before, so it really scared me. I never felt that way. So because of Jordan, who told me we should do something with that, I started therapy, and I started to take pills, but it was very difficult.
And through the lens, truly seeing each other, I think for me, what's been most interesting is just how much I learned about Anna after thinking I knew everything about Anna. We've been together 20 years, and I do feel like I deeply know her. But through working on this project together, it just became obvious that we do also have very separate inner worlds, just like any person does. And that was just eye-opening. I don't know how else to put it. It just kind of, we saw each other differently after many years together through working on this together. And I'll just read something from the book that I wrote. While I focused on documenting from my perspective, I didn't realize I was also being seen. All of the fears I had that I wasn't doing enough, failing as a father, as a husband, and a man, yet I saw someone else in her photos.
Through photography, I found myself as I am, not how others see me or what I feel I need to project. I needed the camera to reclaim my voice amidst feeling powerless. I also wanted to capture the meaningful people in my life, showing how they cared for me and suffered alongside me. Illness doesn't just affect the diagnosed, it impacts a community of people around us. Jordan's images offered a different perspective, deepening my understanding of the burden that is carried by loved ones during illness.
And this is another example. I took this photo and I thought I saw this strong, resilient, brave, courageous woman, which I did. And then I showed that photo to Ani, and she said, I don't know if I've ever felt worse than on that day.
And actually, I remember I had the mental breakdown, and we were in a supermarket, and I really started to cry. I was shaking. And then we were sitting at a table, and literally Jordan started to pull out the camera to take the picture because he said the light was so good. But he made me laugh. Like the next shot would be like me laughing so hard because of his camera and how he was trying to be sneaky about capturing my emotions. And so these are a couple of my self-portraits again. I actually didn't realize how important they will be for me in the future, how important it will be for me, for my healing, to see myself and connect myself to the person I was before and during and after. And throughout our book, there are actually a lot of photos of nature. My grandfather taught me how to garden. And at that time, I didn't realize that it was his healing from the trauma of World War II, where he was in combat and camps. So he gave me a gift that I appreciated much, much later.
And survivorship, returning to a normal that no longer exists. And so this is actually the chapter from our book, the second one. And again, Dr. Google, or whatever we call Google in this instance. So the definition for survivorship was the state of being a survivor. So I had to look up what a survivor means. And a person or thing that survives, a person who continues to function or prosper in spite of opposition, hardships, or setbacks.
So I either function or prosper. I'm not sure yet which one.
And she's either a person or a thing.
Yeah, not sure too.
But I think we wanted this page as well because I think what we've both experienced in this next, this where I don't even like to refer to it as survivorship sometimes, but survivorship is, again, this feeling of not sure how to proceed, not sure where we're going with it. And, the medical terms, again, just don't really provide the kind of empathy that sometimes you need when you're dealing with some difficult things.
Yeah, 5 years after my first scan, I was actually told I will be transferring to survivorship. And I asked, what does it mean to be transferred to a survivorship? And they told me, well, you won't see us. You will just see a nurse practitioner, and we don't want to see you either. So I didn't feel that great. That's why actually the idea of the book came out, because I wanted something tangible in my hand, something that other people can go through and maybe feel something. I actually had, this year was my 7th year when I went to my scans, and I felt very pro. So Jordan asked me if I want him to drive me, and I said no. I know exactly what to do.
But I went.
He went, but I was like, don't worry about me. I'm cool. And I had the biggest panic attack since. I was shaking. I couldn't cry. I was crying. I couldn't talk. Luckily, I have a Russian nurse who told me, "You should see how many people have it worse than you, baby." So she really checked me out, and I felt right at home. So there is something about Russian and Czech nurses that just pick you up, because, people might be dying and I'm crying here.
And then, when we decided to do the book, I had an unexpected, serious bout of depression, which left me kind of unable to get out of a chair for a few months, and I didn't know why. And once I kind of started getting help, we started processing things a little bit. I started learning how to journal, do diaries, and all these things I had always resisted, but they really helped me because I was able to start processing my feelings and try to reframe what I was thinking. And this is something I still do actually on a pretty regular basis, and I don't know, I guess I'll read some of them, and they may be hard to read, but, the idea is like a negative thought, and I wrote, "I will be a widower and I'm unable to take care of Jesse and myself." And then I have to try to reframe that. So I can't even read my own writing. I think it says, "Even if I'm a widower, that does not mean I will stop taking care of myself and Jesse. He'll need me even more." This is the kind of stuff that really, it's hard. It kind of helps and it kind of hurts, but it needs to be dealt with because bearing it down was not working for me anymore. Now Jesse is getting older and he's asking many more questions.
Yeah, when he was about 6, he came home and he was asking me why he doesn't have sibling. And then he told me he would be a great big brother. And I actually had to tell him that it's not his fault. It's not because of him that he wouldn't be a great brother. I knew he would be. I had to tell him that it's because of me, because I was sick. That's why we cannot have another kids. That's why he cannot have siblings. So we actually got him a dog.
And this is the photo Jesse wanted to take. So Jesse sees us with cameras all the time, and we tell him we're working on projects, so he decided he wanted to be a part of the project, and
we needed to kiss.
We asked him what he wanted for his part of the project, and he wanted his mom and dad to kiss.
This is something what I wrote again. There is still a space in me where the fear hides. Sometimes it's hidden deep, and sometimes it comes to the surface. I felt betrayed by my body. I was a broken vessel smashed to pieces. Somewhere deep, I felt alone. I don't feel alone anymore. I'm almost whole again. I'm filling in the missing pieces. I'm gluing together the me that was before, the me that was during, and the me now. I'm still me, but I'm different.
So we want to thank everybody for listening to us and letting us share our portion of the story. I think, what I want to say here in the close is part of what we're doing now with this project is we're trying to really connect a community of people with lived experience of illness and using the arts as a vehicle to bring together people from across industries, the arts, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, people who know a lot, people who know nothing. We really want to bring people together and create conversations that can actually provide real, tangible support for the patient caregiver community. And our nonprofit, or mine that I'm running, but inspired with Ani and through her experience, is the Patient Caregiver Artist Coalition. This is the website. I hope you'll check it out. If anyone's interested in learning more and getting involved in some capacity, we would absolutely love that because this is our first year, but we have big plans.
Yeah.
And now it's with great pleasure that we get to introduce our special guest tonight, Dr. Magdalena Plasilova.
Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. What a wonderful book and presentation, and thank you for the Society for having me. My name is Magdalena Plasilova. My connection here is I'm a breast surgical oncologist. I work at Weill Cornell Medical Center on Upper East Side. And most importantly, I am from Rychnov nad Kněžnou. Who knows Rychnov nad Kněžnou? Oh, okay, excellent. Former Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Czechia. And it's my honor to be here today. It's also October Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we raise awareness, but I think with events like that and your book, I think we should raise awareness every day, not just October. I would like to mention two medical topics, and then we will go into discussion. First topic is breast self-exams. I see Anna was diagnosed at very young age, at late 30s, with no family history. And she would not qualify for, based on the guidelines, for routine screening mammography. She saved her life by detecting palpating mass on her breast. So I would like to mention that it's important to know early signs of breast cancer, feeling clump, which Anna palpated, and then it prompted further workup and early diagnosis and treatment. Another are changes in size, shape of the breast, nipple discharge, tenderness, swelling, skin changes, dimpling, puckering. Those are early signs of breast cancer, but it doesn't mean that everybody with those signs has a breast cancer. But if you notice those changes, you should seek medical attention. And I think Anna did all right things, and she was able to get diagnosed and treated early. Another topic that Anna mentioned is breast density. Who have heard about breast density? It's a hot topic because of latest laws and regulations, and so, by the way, I try to be artistic here too, as you can see. So I was just thinking, how do I describe breast density? So breast density is a mammographic definition. It's basically the radiologist looks at the mammogram, and I was thinking, how to describe it. It's basically when we go to a concert, it's a packed concert, packed room with people, and it's very hard to find anything, see anything, talk to anybody. And I would describe this as a breast density. It's almost like when mammographer, radiolog looks at mammograms and has a full packed breast, full of breast tissue and can't see anything. And in that situation, they have to make a diagnosis or recall, or they have to give a medical advice. So on the upper side, it's not breast tissue. It's a nice, easy, not packed room. So as you know, we recommend for breast screening mammography. But as I mentioned, patients with dense breasts, mammography might not be diagnostic, and we can miss breast cancer. And we currently recommend additional imaging, for example, breast ultrasound or breast MRI.
I wanted to ask you, just from your experience, and seeing some of our work, do any of the themes resonate with things you've heard from other patients or caregivers in terms of, some of the difficulties in processing the experience or even moving into survivorship? I'm just curious what your experience with your community has been.
So I see patients and diagnose patients with breast cancer every day. It's a life-changing diagnosis. It's an emotional roller coaster. So everybody goes through a range of emotions. So that's why I think your book really nicely demonstrates the emotions as an emotional narrative, what patients, what we can't even express in the words. It's a shock, surprise when there is a new diagnosis. I personally think the quick phone call and quick notification, is not a very professional way and good way how to set up good emotions and conversations with patients. It's emotional process, through, shock, surprise, fear, anger, denial, not only for patients, but also for the family and caregivers. So I deal with those emotions every day. And I think every professional could get better.
So what do you do with your patients? Like how do you advise them to navigate some of these issues?
That's a good question. I tend to start my long conversation discussion with a simple sentence. I know this is very scary, but you will be fine. You have something very curable, treatable, and I think it sets up a nice tone for further conversations. And I think another good point that you made, it's always good to have a caregiver, somebody present, and have a list and write down the questions. Because 50% of all conversations, especially after initial diagnosis, are just don't register with patients.
True. I'm sorry, we flanked you. You're like in the middle.
Yeah, I'm going to get first. Why don't we switch? Yeah, I noticed that too.
I tried to be like polite so that you would be sitting in the middle, but
thank
it
you.
doesn't work. So it's nice to have a doctor who's willing to talk.
Absolutely, and I'm honestly thrilled, and this is a wonderful event. Your photographs are, by the way, amazing.
Thank you. We wanted to see, you see a lot of families, right? Not just the diagnosed. So how do you think, or how do you see it as a doctor, how it impacts the people around the patient?
Well, as I mentioned, it's a life-changing diagnosis and total emotional roller coaster, breast cancer diagnosis. I see the way how I talk to patients, that it's a ripple effect. If the patients with new diagnosis feel comfortable with the provider, with the treatment plan, start treatment as soon as possible, I think it has a better effect on the caregivers. And again, caregivers, they go through entire process. So it's the emotions are going both ways. And as a provider, I need to make sure that I communicate clearly.
Thank you.
How can art help improve the well-being of patients and caregivers and help medical professionals in understanding their experience, in your opinion?
I think you just did publishing the book, so I think that's a good start. Your book is an emotional narrative, so as I mentioned, it's full of emotions, beautifully put together, and you are starting wonderful advocacy. I think definitely would like to support that, and I think it's a good first step in terms of advocacy going forward. The photography, I think, are much better expression for emotions than just words. And I think as a professional, I think we can be more empathetic, have more emotions and be empathetic towards patients and what's going on.
And then the last question, we want to just ask you to share more about Operation Breast Density and if it connects with some of the themes of our project that you were saying.
So Operation Breast Density is a non-profit organization. It was started by actually my colleague friend. Similarly as Anna, she was diagnosed with in her 30s with breast cancer, had a challenges getting diagnosis, confirmation process because of breast density. She's doing fine now, and she created this nonprofit organization that helps raise awareness about breast density and the breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And I will kind of put it back to you. Operation Breast Density is similarly as your narrative with emotions and educating and showing to the public. It's similar as Operation Breast Density. We try to empower with knowledge about breast density to providers and patients, so that they can have a better knowledge and get a better healthcare.
Is there any, people should just Google Operation Breast Density? Are there any initiatives going on now?
Absolutely. So there up front are informational materials, and you just Google operationbreastdensity.org. You can get all information about breast density, calculate your breast cancer risk. That includes breast density, family history, so that you know what's the best screening for you. And that's one component. Second component of the nonprofit is as well helping, and that goes back to the financial component of healthcare. We are also helping finance for patients in need, supplemental imaging, breast ultrasound, MRI.
That's great.
So information are up front, including as well, there's a phone number for Cornell Radiology if you need to schedule mammogram or have anybody who needs access and scheduling.
And thank you so much for bringing that, because that is a big part of why we do this, is we want to just politely remind people to just go to regular exams and stuff, and it's just important.
It's very important.
So we are so thankful for everyone here. If anyone has questions that they would like to ask ourselves or our doctor, we're...
I actually have a question for each of you. One is for Jordan, and that is, how do I help my male friend going through what you just went through 7, 8, 9 years ago? How do I support him? I'm already supporting my friend who selected me one of our inner circles, but how do I help him to survive with 2 little kids?
So sorry, so he himself is diagnosed, or his partner is?
His wife.
His wife. And it's just right now? I'm sorry. Well, one thing I would say is, please, I mean this quite honestly, if you want to connect him to me,
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, and we don't just say that. That goes for anyone in this room.
Yeah.
We are here to be resources for people because we've had trouble finding it. So please do connect us. But I think, do what care about him as much as I can tell you do. Maybe check in on him. In retrospect, I know I was looking for guys to talk to, but it didn't really matter. I just needed someone who cared. And I think you caring about him and just checking in, seeing if he just needs help, or just go for a beer. I just had friends sometimes just take me out for a drink, and Ani actually did that for me. It was a really wonderful gift. I felt guilty going out when she was sick, and so she called Josh, and she would call another friend of mine who's no longer here, and she'd say, "Can you guys please take Jordan out? Can you spend some time with him? He really needs a break."
I have no memory of that. Literally.
Really?
It's the chemo brain. I really don't remember.
Well, she did it. So, I think, maybe just go out for a night. It doesn't always have to be just talking about the feelings. Sometimes just having a little break from it all can be really healing.
Yeah, I've been forcing my husband. Next question is for Anna. What to tell the kids now in retrospect? Somehow I'm being selected to the friend who knows out of the world that does not, and it's been happening, and this is a 4th case of just my inner circle friends, and they all have little kids, so different ages from toddler to the 7, 8, 9-year-old. What do we do? How do we approach that now when you're looking back? What is helpful?
So for us, as I said, Jessie was really small, but we were very open, according to his age. So like when I was started to lose my hair, we created a shave party where we put the music on and we had Jesse there with us. So he was kind of like enjoying it. I was scared that he will see me bald afterwards, but he really didn't care, maybe because of that. Like we created kind of a normalcy. Like, you know, mommy doesn't have hair now. That's okay, you know. Then when I was getting more tired, I was actually in the bed most of the time. So he started to bring his toys and his bottle and a book, and that's where we were spending time. That was in the bed with me. So he still has that muscle memory. Every time I'm sick, he actually brings his iPad now and plays video games next to me. But it comes from, and I know it comes from that time. So I think the best way, where first of all, there are a lot of amazing organizations. I would definitely recommend to contact CASEM. That's an organization that helps children with parental cancer, and they even have psychologists, and they create these online groups. And in summer they have a CASEM camp that's for free.
We literally just met with them last month because I don't know that we have a great answer for this one.
Yeah,
we're trying to figure it out too. Like our son really understands stuff now, and it's hard.
There are books now. They were not available 7 years ago, but they have a lot of books for children that explain when the woman goes through chemotherapy, like how does she feel. So I will send you a link afterwards.
And there is a new book Gilead put out called The Adventure Jar for kids with metastatic cancer. So I don't know if you have friends dealing with that, but I do think some of those, some of that book might be applicable.
Okay, thank you so much. My next question is for Dr. Plasilova. It makes me so mad to know all I know from my friends now. For example, that every receipt that you get from anywhere, from gas station, from a store, has estrogen on it. And for women who touch it, that can cause breast cancer. The fact that we take birth control pills and later on tell you, oh yeah, you might have the breast cancer because of the birth control pills you took 20 years ago. What the hell? Why are you guys not talking about this? Why the whole world does not know from professionals? No single individual who's not a doctor does not have that much power as the doctors do. And I think that I blame the medical system, insurances and doctors for not speaking up. You're with this every single day. I know this is a beautiful presentation and we love you for being here. I'm so mad for my friends, for all the medical professionals that are not speaking up and not creating a ripple effect that goes all the way up high to the government to change this for all of us. Why?
Can you just clarify what specific cause of breast cancer besides birth control pills?
Yes, so one of the friends of mine, the breast cancer is hormone. She's very healthy, eating extremely healthy, not drinking, not doing anything, very fit woman, and no medical history. And they told her that her breast cancer might be caused by hormonal imbalances, and it might be because of the bills she's touching at the store. Like, why do we all just not get rid of this as a society? Like, why is it still that we're exposed to so many bad things that are avoidable? And I think that as an individual, it's hard to change anything, but I think that the medical profession, when they say we see people over and over and over, and we might think that there might be a link from this and that, like, is there anything that we could do to support doctors and medical professionals to get that message across and ban things that are, for example, bad for all of us?
So that's a lot to unpack. I will be I will focus on probably only just parts. By the way, that's maybe one of the topic maybe for the Czechoslovakian Arts and Society and Sciences projects. So I can't comment specifically on your friend because I would, that's I also have a PhD in molecular and stem cell biology. I don't know her specific details, so I can't draw general conclusions scientifically here. As much as we do breast cancer awareness, we still, besides genetic factors, for example, that didn't apply to Anna, what are exactly the causes for breast cancer? So that's ongoing research. We still don't have a 100% answer to everything. We are going through more additional research studies showing environmental exposure. For example, World Trade Center, catastrophic rated, a lot of toxic exposure. So we have clear studies showing that there has been increased incidence of breast cancer, but also other cancers. So the topic you are touching, we are investigating. I will just and that's part of the breast cancer awareness, clear a little bit myth. Touching the bells, not linked to breast cancer, and I'm pretty well read. Okay, so I would just gonna clarify that, that there is no link to breast cancer. So for example, to answer your part, I'm happy to get into detailed conversations and maybe clarify some information for you outside the microphone conversation.
I am amazed at the acronym. I actually really had no idea that it's actually that came from your diagnosis. And so, question for the three of you, if you know what actually it stands for. And if the people who created that acronym, HER2, were kind of aware of sort of like this ominous feeling that I get from it, it's just like, oh yeah, HER2. Yeah. And just a comment, I mean, I'm quite amazed hearing your experience with this disease that it's been around for such a long time, and then breast cancer, obviously that's not like a new thing, and that you felt that you were lacking the support system. I'm really actually quite shocked. In New York, like I would possibly think that somewhere in a rural area people have a hard time finding sort of groups or I really believe that this stage is over, and that actually there is something that the community created to support families like yours. Thank you.
So first, to your HER2, I have to say the first time I heard it, I'm like, you're kidding, right? Like, it just cannot be named, my cancer cannot be named HER2. And the doctor was like completely straight-faced, and she goes, yeah, that's the name. There's like nothing wrong with that, right? I'm like, really? Am I the only one who has like weird sense of humor then?
And then when we were doing with the publisher with the book title, they didn't know that it was a strain of cancer, so they're like, HER2, okay. They thought we were being like, me too?
Like, me too.
Which they actually then said was good, because they thought, oh, well, maybe we'll attract, they thought there was crossover audience, so it kind of worked to the advantage. But yeah, it was...
Yeah, we don't know, but we have an expert here.
So it's in medical field, when we discover new molecules, new proteins, we give them the name. So and then we have a target. So HER2 comes from protein that has been detected on breast cancer. So it's a conjugated, complicated protein. We also, just for the awareness on the breast cancer cell, look for additional markers like estrogen, progesterone, which is obviously more common, and the cancer cells that have marker protein, Herceptin, that maybe have a specific treatment, Herceptin. It's getting complicated. I'm not going to go, maybe that's another lecture we can create about the complex Herceptin and, trastuzumab and other treatment drug proteins. It's basically a marker that we have a specific targeted, and it's called friendly chemotherapy, because we can I know this is a terrible word, yeah, but we can specifically target this protein, and it was part of the clinical trial, and this has been actually within last couple of years groundbreaking discovery, and patients with targeted Herceptin that targets the complicated protein have a very good treatment responses.
Yeah, it can be really rapidly. I mean, that was what was scary. It was 7 years ago. Our doctors were, in a weird way, excited she had it because they said, we actually have some really great treatments for this, and this is going to help your prognosis. But they said, if you came here 5 years ago, I'm not even sure if you would make it 5 years.
But luckily we had a scientist with a very good sense of humor that named it HER2.
I just want to address one part of your question that we didn't, you're surprised that we felt this kind of alienation and that, in a city like New York. Yeah, I agree. Like it was kind of weird. And I think part of it was that everyone this year is talking about cancer under 50, right? It's like the talk of the news, every week it feels like there's a new headline. 7 years ago, it wasn't quite like that. And so specifically as younger people trying to build a family, trying to build a career, we felt separated from our friends and we felt separated from our community because none of them were really going through that at that time. And so we lost a lot of our support network. And I don't know if you've experienced illness in your life or anything, but from our experience, sometimes people drop away that you don't expect to. And we had a lot of that. We had a lot of people that we thought were our circle that once we needed them were not available to us. And that added to this kind of alienation.
So, Dr. Plasilova, I understand you're the surgeon and you do the technical part, I'm sure very well, but in terms of offering emotional support to your patients who come see you again, you have a team around you, and I just met this woman behind me who's your nurse practitioner, and I think she deserves a shout out.
Yeah, so Danielle, okay. By the way, thank you, Danielle. Danielle works with me. She's part of the team, and I think it's also important, having a right team, not only just surgeon, having a great mid-level provider, nurse practitioners. Also have here Yelena. She's my coordinator. So this is I think it's extremely important to go through what you have been going through.
I'm sorry. What was your name?
Danielle. Let's put a shout out to Danielle and Yelena.
More than a shout out. Any chance you'd like to come for a second and just talk to us, just say a little bit about what you do to help people balance, with their emotional support?
Yeah, absolutely. I can gladly share microphone.
Because I'm actually curious for myself.
By the way, I love your book. Where could I buy it? I have a 3-year-old boy, so it was very touching. So I work with Dr. Plasilova, and I've been at Cornell at the Breast Center for almost 9 years. So I kind of am with Dr. Plasilova is a surgeon, obviously, and as you know, there's a whole team of people that take care of you when you have cancer, a surgical oncologist, medical oncologist, radiation oncologist. So we're, part of the bigger group, but we see people when they're first diagnosed. We're usually the first people they see. And it's interesting, actually, listening to you talk about all the different emotions you went through. We definitely see the whole gamut of emotions with patients who come in. Some that are just angry and take that anger out on us as the medical staff. Some of them are, just upset and need a lot of kind of hand-holding through everything. But yeah, so basically I'm there with Dr. Plasilova to answer questions and help arrange biopsies and help people schedule tests and things like that and answer questions essentially because, when she's not meeting new patients on clinic days, she's in the operating room saving lives. So I'm in the office, and if patients call and they have questions, they say, I was just there yesterday and I forgot to ask this question, or, I was explained this, but, I didn't think to ask this other thing. So I'm basically just there 5 days a week to help people navigate, basically.
Well, I wanted to tell you how important that is for patients when they, the first time when you go somewhere, you're scared, you're terrified. And then that one small thing that you do for them, like the smile, or just tell them, like, you know, call them the first name on the appointment, that means so much to people. They might not show it, but it's just something that they will always remember. So thank you.
And I wanted to say too, interestingly for me sitting here, my own father had brain cancer. He was diagnosed at 60. He passed away 5 years ago, but it was interesting for me to be on the other side as a caregiver. So I resonated a lot with many of the things that you were saying. You do have to push so much down to be there for somebody. Luckily, I have a lot of medical knowledge, and I was able to navigate all of that pretty seamlessly, but I do think that helps also. You know, I can, you know, my dad didn't have breast cancer, but cancer is cancer to an extent. The treatments are essentially the same across the board. So that also helps me with the patients as well, because I do understand what people are going through to an extent. And it's not easy, and it affects so many parts of your life, so.
If you could go back and say something to yourselves at the beginning of this, what would you tell yourself? Looking back, go up, you know, what's the thing?
I would tell myself not to expect to be the same as I was, because I remember going to the first appointment with my doctor, and she told me it's going to be a tough year. And you're there and you're thinking, okay, tough year, I can make that. And you don't realize that you will be coming out different. And that's big shock. That coming out different is a really big shock, and you don't know what to do. So I think that warning would really help me in the beginning of the journey. It would be like, okay, it's going to be a tough year, and you will be different. You will change. You might call yourself whatever you want, but don't expect, because with that all year you're expecting that you will be the same, right? Everything will be okay. You will be like you were before. No. And that would be a great warning for myself.
Yeah, even last month we were at a book event when our book first came out, and this person came up to us, and he's very nice, and you know, in our industry, and we know of him, and he said to us, "Oh, so you're okay now?" And I didn't know what to say. It was like our whole book is about how we're not exactly just okay now, and I didn't even have the courage in that moment to just say that, because I feel the pressure so much to project a certain kind of way of moving on. So I think I would tell myself now, my old version, is it's okay to not be okay.
And I guess for Dr. Plasilova and also, I'm sorry, Danielle, if you want to also include it. But for Dr. Plasilova, on the other side of that, you mentioned earlier that you tell people at the beginning, this is a scary thing, you will get through it. Is there something that you either do get to or don't get to tell patients at the end that you think they should know?
That's an interesting question. I am actually pretty thorough. So I think in order to, control emotions, I feel that medical providers should be really open with patients and provide enough information and deliver it in a comfortable way so that they can understand, make a good decisions. So I always tell patients, I'm here to provide the information, and they always have a question, what would you do, Dr. Plasilova? But so my goal is to provide as much as information so that the patients can make a good decision. So I think that's important, to really empower patients with the knowledge in a well-delivered way. and be empathetic, obviously, and having great medical staff. Here, shout out to Yelena, and also Daniel. She mentioned, they are my extenders, so they can help actually achieve the goal that I'm just describing as well.
Thank you so much for a beautiful presentation. I love your book, and thank you for Dr. Plasilova to explaining exactly in technical matters and medical matters, what does it mean? I'm also a cancer survivor. I had stage 1. Mine, Dr. Plasilova is my doctor, as a matter of fact, so bravo. Well, in many ways, Dr. Plasilova not only was my doctor, but also my mental supporter, and from the perspective of human being giving me support to survive. In many ways, I think it's very hard to explain. Why me? But on the other hand, why not me? Every 8th woman in the world has been diagnosed with breast cancer. I was just one of them, just like you.
2 of us.
2 of us. HER2, me too. So the 2 of us. And the explanation from Dr. Plasilova came to me. I was sitting in her office and making my life almost like suddenly I was on the bottom in the big hole on the floor. Floor was on this level, and I was on the bottom somewhere like in a hell or in chaos. I don't know how you call this in this point. But Dr. Plasilova looked at me, he's like, I can guarantee you, 99% you're gonna end up your life from totally something else. You'll be fine. I'm like, thank you so much. I can extremely inspiring. Something will get you eventually, but not this. And that thought in my head made me go through this thinking that I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But question why, still lingering. Yeah. Although you made a book, I wrote the song. I was researching, doing a lot of research. I'm in a beauty business. I have company called On Camera Image Consulting. I help people to create a brand and image on camera. So cosmetics, answering the question, what could cause the breast cancer? Deodorant, for instance, or cosmetics which are not purely clean, and nobody talks to us about this. Dr. Plasilova and I had a few nice little talks on little panels regarding it, and we're gonna do another one. So there's a lot of levels we don't know, and we probably are not aware of it, which takes a lot of other concepts. But going back to your beautiful book, you turned something dramatic event, which is very humble in human life, into a beautiful piece of art. And I would like to congratulate you. I know it was very emotional. Bravo to both of you. And thank you, Dr. Plasilova, for all your help.
Meanwhile, we heard from Anna about this horrible experience of learning from a technician that she had cancer, correct? So it gives me an impression that it's almost up to the doctor at a certain institution to build such a team around her to support the patient, or is it all over United States? Is it a common practice to have a team built around you to support the patient, or was that sort of your idea?
So that's one of the good things about the United States. We have great resources for diagnostic and treatment purposes and new clinical trials, innovations. That's actually why I came here for American Dream from the Czech Republic. So we have tons of resources, and we have accredited specialized breast centers that have specific teams, as Daniel mentioned. So it's a standard of care to be taken care of by the team of multidisciplinary specialists. So it's common, and who doesn't get multidisciplinary care should question their care and maybe look for second opinion.
So go to Dr. Plasilova.
I love the book. I got to see it on Saturday. Didn't get to see you guys, but I saw the book, which was a good second best. I have a question as a therapist, and it's particularly about your therapists doing this, if you can answer it. But if not, it can be about anybody else, any other practitioners, or just any other people. And it's actually, what are some things that people have said that are really not helpful? Like things not to say.
Like
That's our second book.
we had that was really good. I remember going to Jessie was in daycare, and so I wanted to be open just in case that there's something that they might pay attention to. And the woman told me, "Oh my God, my daughter just died of breast cancer."
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt really bad for her, you know, but I didn't have the capacity to actually take her pain on me. And I had a lot of people who needed to share all the... somehow, I didn't have that many people who wanted to share something nice. I guess I attract a lot of people who want to share more of, oh my God, my aunt died.
Yeah, I got a lot of that too. And on the other end, my general practitioner said to me, "Oh, your wife has cancer. Don't worry, women don't die of breast cancer anymore." And I really didn't like that.
And then I had a lot of people who were basically, like, if I would say that I'm going to get chemotherapy, I had all these people who told me to get second opinion, like on Google, for example, they tell you to go and drink juices.
Well, even with your mother, I mean, when her mom heard that she was going to do chemotherapy, she was like, "Oh, chemo? You shouldn't do that." You know, she had a lot of theories and a lot of ideas, and she's not a doctor. And like, you know, and we love her mother and we get it, but that's actually a problem that a lot of families have. And I want to draw attention to it because that can influence people's decisions in the kind of treatment they seek.
Yeah,
especially when it's coming from your family.
Yeah, I always tell people, I know organic is great, you know, but people 200 years ago theoretically had everything organic, and they were dying like flies. So I kind of like science. I am. So I think what's helpful is to be supportive.
I just want to say one last thing on that. I just would recommend to people, don't be afraid to say something, though. Like, you can definitely say things that aren't helpful, but I think what hurt the most was when people didn't say anything.
Yeah.
My question is for the doctor. This is a very strange question. I'm very excited to meet you. I read your bio, and you really are extraordinary. And my question is, when you were a young girl, did you know what you wanted to do? And did you have an experience that brought you specifically to be a breast cancer doctor? And also, I have another question for you. When you go into the operating room every day, do you think about killing the cancer cell? Do you have something that you think about when you're inside of that experience in the operating room? And then thirdly, I just want to say, really, you probably don't hear this enough, that you have taken on this huge thing that you do. And anyway, I just want to say for everyone, thank you for being a cancer slayer. Thank you for being superhuman.
Wow, that was, thank you so much. It was very kind, actually. Yeah. Nobody told me that. That's very nice. You have so many good questions. Who grew up in the Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic here? So quite a bit. So I grew up, and you are just pushed to excellency. Everything what you do, you have to exceed, and you have to try to do the best. I was in the national team for rhythmic gymnastics, so that was my kind of early start to just kind of keep pushing myself. And then, you know, medicals. I always wanted to be a medical doctor, and so there was always thing that I planned to do. And I came here to the United States to do research. I actually got PhD and worked with Nobel laureate and famous scientist, Dr. Malcolm Moore, who discovered famous drugs, Neutrogena. So I've surrounded myself with extreme great role models that always push me forward, and part of the science. I was always very curious, and I think that's how we grow up in the Czech Republic. And the reason why I decided to be a cancer surgeon is, I like the PhD, like when you work with hands, pipette. I like, having things hands-on, and I also like, as a surgeon solution, I can really save life. I can remove things, and I specialize in breast conservation, lumpectomy that Anna had. So I'm a little bit artistic as well. I specialize in oncoplasty, looking. My cancer outcomes, the breast surgeries have a good cosmetic outcome. So I think it was a combination of curing patients hands-on and my scientific background. And in the OR, I sweat every day with every single patient, make sure my margins are clear. With Daniel, we always discuss with the secretaries everything. So every patient is individual, and I take things very seriously. And you are right, sometimes, especially with my PhD background, I always make sure I don't leave anything behind and review slides extra. So I think it's all, the breast surgical oncology combines all my experiences, research, and my background. And so I'm actually, extremely happy that I'm able to interact and save many, many lives and give back to the society.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank all of our guests, including the people who we pulled out of the audience, for sharing all of this with us this evening. It's been great. Thank you.